I would like to introduce you to our speakers. We have Patricia Lindman, the Academic Director of the Psychology Department. We have Andrew Hummer, the Senior Program Advisor. And then we have Tiffany Palmer, our Senior Admissions Counselor, who will review the application requirements. So without any further ado, I would like to pass it along to Patricia and Andrew.
So the psychology certificate program, Tricia, or
Andy.
Tricia, Dr. Patricia Lindemann, the academic director for the certificate program, also known just as Tricia. I guess give us a brief rundown on sort of what this certificate is.
Happy to do so. Okay, folks. So the vast majority of folks who are aiming to complete the psychology certificate program are people who were either working in another field or completed a degree recently in another field and have, since they started on their path, realized that what they really, really want to do is study psychology. And they really want to get a graduate degree in psychology, but unfortunately, they don't have the prerequisites for that. And so they're coming into our program in order to prepare for a higher degree. The vast majority of people are aiming either for a PhD, which can be in a clinical field or a non-clinical psychology field. Psychology is a very broad discipline. But I will say that the majority of the folks who are coming into our program, probably 3/4 of the people, are aiming for a clinical field. And they're either aiming for a PhD or they are aiming for a PsyD, which, if you're not familiar with it, is the graduate degree for people who are interested in becoming clinical psychologists. I like to compare it to an MD or a law degree as more of a professional degree as opposed to a research degree. Some people who come in are aiming for master's degrees, but in general, I think that our program is actually probably more than you need to prepare yourself for a master's degree. And for most people, I typically don't recommend it for that route.
Yeah, so definitely, just as Tricia sort of mentioned, it is for people, even those that maybe they took an intro to psych course the freshman year of their undergraduate years and years and years ago. If they have some psychology, courses in their background, but are looking to either have it refreshed or are looking to take, a number of courses, then this could definitely be a fit for the program. We do have students who, sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was just chiming in with agreement.
Yes. And it's, we do have students who do look at this certificate program with the idea of eventually doing a master's. As Tricia mentioned, you don't need to take all 8 courses for you to basically be qualified or a competitive candidate for the master's degree programs. That's what this certificate program is really designed for, is it's designed to make you a competitive applicant in whatever program you are looking to get into. And so some programs may require more courses, some may require fewer. And so that's what we kind of hope to tease out, I think, while you're here in the program.
And just adding on to what Andy said, he mentioned, if you've taken one intro psych course, so many people have taken a few courses in psychology. That's absolutely fine. So is it on me or you want to do the requirements, Andy?
I'm totally happy to do the requirements. So the curriculum, for the most part, will consist of 8 courses. The points or credits, Columbia University kind of uses that synonymously, or interchangeably. It consists of an introductory psychology course, right? So for the case of Columbia, it's Psych 1001, the science of psychology, taught by our very own Dr. Patricia Lindman. And then we have a laboratory course in experimental psychology. This is referred to in sort of the psych department here as our research methods course. It's a way of basically allowing students to learn about the actual steps of running an experiment, the methodology involved. It also, the certificate also requires you to take an introductory course in statistics. Now, this can be either a general psychology or a general statistics course, or the psychology department does have a statistics for behavioral scientists course. Which is more like an applied stats course for the field. It kind of gives you the tools that would generally be used in, conducting research or other experimentation. Is that correct, Tricia?
Yeah, that's right. This wasn't really fair of me to give you this job, since I certainly know the courses better than you do. But the stats course in the psych department, Andy, and anybody else who's interested, we really recommend that course, in part because for two reasons. One is that it has a lab associated with it, so there's practical hands-on part, and two, because the examples are all from psychology.
Yes. And then we kind of go into a course in each of 3 areas. And so for those that are just pivoting into the field of psychology, there are a number of students who are coming into the program that know what they want to study. Others are just really interested in psychology in general and are curious about what they would be looking to kind of do down the road. And so this kind of gives students a bit of a survey, a sort of a range of the psychology fields and subfields. So you would be able to take or required to take a course in perception and cognition. There would be a requirement for you to take a course in neuroscience and
It should say biopsychology.
biopsychology. And then there's the final sort of subfield would be social personality and abnormal psychology. A few things about this is that this is a recommended sort of array. If a student does know what they're interested in studying, right? Let's say that a student is really interested in pursuing research in cognition. We do have the ability for this curriculum to be a bit flexible, right? So we could have you take, instead of one of each of these subfields, we can have you take maybe 2 cognition courses and a social course. As I sort of mentioned before, it's all about filling those gaps and to make you a competitive applicant in a very specific program or specific subfield that you're interested in studying. So we can have it catered a little bit to your interests. If you don't know what you're really wanting to study while you join the certificate program, that's fine. That's actually part of the reason why some students take this program, is to really kind of see what they're interested in. We've had a number of students who thought they were coming in with an interest in personality, but they take a neuroscience course and they were like, this is fantastic. I find it fascinating. And kind of switch gears. So one course from each of those areas, or 3 courses in that sort of range, and then there's going to be an advanced seminar. And so I guess, Tricia, what's the difference between sort of a regular course that we would see in like the 2000s and a
Excellent question, Andy. So the courses in the 3 areas are, for most people, going to be lecture courses, often very large lecture courses with 100 to 200 students in them. And the seminars are going to be a small kind of capstone course with 15 or fewer students. And that's an opportunity for you to delve deeply into a much narrower topic area. So the way that I sometimes like to refer to it is that for each of the area courses, it kind of would be like a chapter in your intro psych course, like, social psychology, which is a very, very broad topic area. And then the seminar would probably focus in on one of the small subsections within that chapter. And for the seminar courses, you wouldn't be reading a textbook. Instead, you'll be reading primary research articles And usually the way that those seminars are conducted is that they're largely student-led. So each week, one or more students will take a turn as the instructor for all or part of the class period.
Fascinating. And that, yeah, that definitely can help, especially when it comes to, if you have the idea that you'll be eventually teaching, right? This could give you.
Exactly. And, one other thing to add is that, especially if you've already taken a few psychology courses, some people will opt to fulfill those distribution requirements with seminar courses as opposed to with the, with the actual 2000 level lecture course. That's allowed.
Right.
And also one more comment on Andy, your thoughts that we're flexible. We are absolutely flexible in terms of letting people select their program. We can make some shifts, not a problem. However, these areas are so interconnected that somebody who's interested in clinical psychology is going to want to take abnormal psychology, certainly, but it really makes sense to take a basic neuroscience course so that you can have a better understanding of the neuroscience of the brain. And it really makes sense to take a cognition course because you want to know something about how people think and feel. So to think about these things as isolated areas is increasingly problematic as the science becomes more and more integrated.
And that's a fantastic point. And that's also, I mean, that brings reminds me of something else where if a student does come in with like, oh yeah, I did take an intro to psych course in the past and recent past, I think it might be a bit redundant. That's where we would have this sort of flexibility to say, okay, well, we're not going to force you to retake a intro to psych course. But if you want to complete the certificate, if you want to complete and receive the certificate from Columbia University, you would need to take a course in place of that introductory psychology course, which is where that sort of option that Tricia just mentioned, maybe taking an additional elective, maybe taking an additional seminar, can come in. The point being that the certificate requires 8 courses.
Yep.
And
28 credits. It's depending on how some courses are 4 points, some courses are 3 points. So depending on how you add it up, but 8, generally speaking, about 8 courses.
Exactly. And then we have the final requirement, which is 3 credits of 39.50, and it's a bit tricky. So tell me about this supervised research participation.
So one of the key requirements for folks who are entering into PhD programs, especially, is that they get some research experience. And so we really want to help our students to have that experience of working in a research lab. One of the challenges that we increasingly face is that lots and lots and lots of people want to have positions in research labs, not just our post-bac certificate students. And there simply aren't enough spots to go around for all of the undergraduates who want to be participating in research, as well as all of the certificate students who want to participate in research. So we try to facilitate everyone getting a spot, whether it be here on campus or whether it be at a lab at another institution. Sometimes up at the medical school, they have positions. But this is an important part of the program to do your best to get one of these actually highly competitive spots. And as I say, we facilitate to the extent that we can. Whenever we hear about positions, we send messages to our students and we have an event to introduce you to the various labs in our department. So there are lots of opportunities, but unfortunately, we can't absolutely promise that everybody will be able to get a lab position. We used to be able to do that, but lab positions got more popular.
It's good to note that not only are there opportunities within the psych department, but then within other schools at Columbia as well, right?
Good point. Absolutely. Definitely opportunity, and the opportunities at Teachers College at Columbia, which is the more applied school here for psychology. More of the, in fact, all of the clinical psychology coursework at Columbia, more or less, is at Teachers College, not here on the main campus. And the other thing is we have some other courses that we allow to count in place of the Psych 3950 requirement. So for example, one of the schools at the university is Barnard College, and they have a clinical fieldwork practicum where they actually place students in field positions where they can practice some elements of clinical psychology as interns. And that's one of the courses that we will count in place of 3950. And it's really terrific for some of our students who are interested in clinical practice.
Now, Tricia, when it comes to the amount of research and lab experience for students who are interested in, a PhD or PsyD, I guess what are the minimums that?
What an excellent question, Andy. So for PsyDs, it's less important to get that lab experience, that research experience, although increasingly PsyD programs are looking for that. I would say you certainly want to have at least a semester of research experience if you're applying for a PsyD program. If you are applying for a PhD program, I would honestly recommend that you have at least 2 years of experience working in a research lab before you apply. How can I do that, given that this program isn't even a 2-year program? Many of our students complete this program and then continue on not to a PhD program directly, but they are now credentialed to find a really good research position. And so that many of our students will spend a year or even 2 years building their credentials as researchers prior to applying to PhD programs.
And when it comes to, thank you, Tricia. When it comes to this this last point that it mentions, 2 semesters of supervised research participation, what that typically means is that for the most part, you will first volunteer through a lab, perhaps for 1 semester, and then depending on the lab. If you are invited back for, perhaps the subsequent term, depending on what responsibilities you may have, that's when, actually signing up for Psychology 3950, supervised individual research, would come into play. Now, some labs, depending on your experience, or depending on what you'd be doing in those labs, you may have that opportunity to register for 3950 immediately. It just depends. And so that's where Tricia and myself would kind of work with you to determine, when it would be good for you to register. Yep. You only need to take 3 credits of 3950 in order to satisfy this. When you go to register for the course, it gives you a variable between 0 and 4. So you could take 1 credit in 1 semester, 2 in the other, but at the end of the day, by the time that you want to graduate, you'll have 3 credits. And Tricia, you did mention that this program is typically, done in maybe a year or so. But do you recommend sort of the students kind of taking this part-time, full-time? How would you, I guess, proceed?
What an excellent question. Again, Andy, you're so full of good questions. What I would say is it really depends on the person. We are completely flexible about how you complete the program. I've seen students take 1 course per semester for several years. And I've seen students complete the program in 2 semesters. I typically recommend no more than 3 courses for the first semester. And that would be three courses plus trying to find a position in a lab typically. The taking more than 3 courses in the first semester is typically not advantageous to a student. A lot of folks have been out of school for a while, have actual lives outside of school, families, other commitments, and there's no incentive to take more than 3 courses. I would much prefer that you take 3 courses and try to get as much out of those courses as you can, rather than trying to spread yourself thin. I think it's a much better model.
Yeah, I mean, because not only are you, you're trying to balance obviously completing the certificate quickly because you want to move on to, either research or applying to graduate school. But you also want to balance that with getting good grades, right? The threshold, sort of the bare minimum for some of these PhD, especially competitive programs, are going to be 3.5, 3.6 at the very minimum. So, the point of this certificate program is for you to, yes, get through and get those courses under your belt, but make sure that you're really spending the time and getting good grades in those classes.
Well, and it also affords you the opportunity, if you are able to get into a lab, to spend some real time there.
Exactly.
To
Yes.
get deeply immersed.
And so for,
And the final thing I would say is for students who've been out of school for a while or who weren't at the same kind of institution that Columbia is, where things can be highly competitive. And so students who haven't had that type of experience before, it can be a little bit of an initial few weeks of culture shock. And so you may want to, you got to up your game a little bit for some students. And so to give yourself the opportunity to be able to do that,
right.
rather than to try and do it all at once. The
Yep.
other thing I would say is that many students are trying to work part-time. If you're working 20 hours a week, I would not recommend taking more than 2 classes. Even if you've done that elsewhere at other times in your life, working 20, 30 hours a week and still taking 3 classes. In my experience, even the top students cannot manage to do more than 2 classes at one time if they're working a real job at the same time.
Yeah, and so especially if you're coming in with very little experience, typically a good first term would be, an introductory psychology course and maybe the stats course, right? That would be a nice sort of approach.
Yep.
Depending on your background, depending on what courses you've taken, and depending on, at the end of the day, what you're capable of. You could maybe look at doing a third course, but most times I see students take roughly 2 classes per semester in order to give them that additional time for lab work or, to really focus and get good grades in the courses that they're taking.
Let's not focus only on grades, the best learning experience.
Yes, indeed. Yes, let's go with that. So
That's where we should be.
And so, at the end of the day, if you do decide to take all 8 courses and receive the certificate, this will provide you with a number of benefits. So the certificate is recognized by the state of New York as an award from Columbia University. And as such, it would then give you access to alumni benefits through Columbia. And so the benefits that sort of go with other degree programs here at the university. So, definitely a lot of really good opportunities, and, you'll have sort of those connections with researchers here at Columbia. You'll have connections with the faculty, with students, and those can lead to opportunities. Or even, really important things like letters of recommendation or opportunities that do pop up, they might recommend you. So there's definitely some benefits there.
I want to say 2 things on this. One, it just occurred to me that they have this particular illustration because that's the statue of Alma Mater, which not everybody may be familiar with. And number two, what Andy has sort of subtly been alluding to several times, but hasn't said outward, is that not all of our students do actually complete the full program. And we really don't push people to do that. We really want you to complete whatever it is that you need to complete to get the most out of the program for you. We're looking to build credentials, and honestly, let's not forget about building learning.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely a good point, that we don't necessarily intrinsically tie completion of the certificate program with success in the program. The point of this program is to get you to that next step. And so if you are coming in and you only need a few classes, for example, if you're looking at joining a master's program and you only need 1 or 2 courses, that's all you would probably need, maybe 3 courses in order for you to be considered a competitive applicant. Same with those that have taken maybe a few psychology courses in the past. You could just take 5, 6 courses and you're like, I'm done. And if that is what you needed in order to get you admitted to the program that you were looking for, that saves you time, that saves you money. So there are benefits of completing the certificate and there are benefits of not completing the certificate. So we're not going to try and sell you either way. The point is to get you the education that you need. But if you do complete the certificate program, there are alumni benefits.
Exactly.
And so, you know, we've had students that have come through the program, a number of students that have come through the program that have gone on to do, you know, PhDs, PsyDs, have gone on to do masters, and they come from a variety of backgrounds. We have students who are coming from finance. We have students who are coming from healthcare PR, like Lydia. You know, these students, you know, have gone on, they've been out in the field doing other things that they, you know, they took a shot at. And sometimes you have to realize what you don't want to do before you figure out what you do want to do. And so we do see students that will sometimes come into the program straight from the undergrad, their undergraduate degree, but more likely than not, we do see students who have been working and have not been in school for 5, 10, 15 years, who are looking for a change. And that's kind of what is the major sort of idea behind the certificate program.
Yeah, I would say that the majority of our students are in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
They've entered some other field, they've worked in it for, you know, 3 to 5 years, and they're not happy with it. And they've been reevaluating what it is that they want to do. And they've really come to the realization that this is the field that they want to pursue.
Yep. And so and you notice that with sort of the drive that students come into this program with. I feel like, you know, sometimes students will kind of have an idea of what they want to do, and maybe they'll, you know, perform to a certain degree in their undergrad, but you know, by getting into the workforce and by, you know, discovering what it is that they really want to study, I've definitely noticed that a lot of our students have sort of that initiative and that drive to really do well, and they do. A lot of students end up getting very good GPAs at this program, which, I mean, Columbia is one of the top institutions in the country. So for them to do well and be, you know, kind of leaving the program with a high GPA is fantastic to see. And so I don't know if we have sold you on the certificate program or not.
Wait, I have one more thing to say.
Oh, yes, of course.
Andy is amazing and is a fantastic advisor to our students, as I am sure you have picked up on. And so he and I of course, am also amazing, are your primary resource people when you are here. So we're glad to get you to see our faces, and we hope that our enthusiasm for the program and for one another has helped you to get a handle on what we have to offer.
And that's really a good point too. Something to mention is that yes, this certificate program is housed within the School of Professional Studies, and I would be your sort of your SPS advisor. I've been working for this certificate program for 5.5 years now. So
That's why he knows all of the courses so incredibly well, despite not being actually in the psychology department.
And that brings up a good point. So I'm happy to talk to you about the curriculum. I'm happy to talk to you about courses, about figuring out the right sequence. I can always talk to you about registration. I can talk to you about health insurance and all of the bureaucratic administrative stuff that goes with attending Columbia University. There are things where I am not the expert in that regard, right? At the end of the day, Tricia and the faculty are going to be the experts in the field of psychology. And so questions about the nuances between this neuroscience course and that neuroscience course, questions about maybe research opportunities, or how to approach, publishing or doing a poster, that I would typically defer to Tricia or defer to your instructors. And so, like if you're not sure who to talk to, you can always come to me, and then I'm always happy to bring you to Tricia or recommend that you reach out to Tricia. You're welcome to reach out to Tricia as well.
And you're welcome to reach out to Andy. He's really a great resource.
So if you guys are still here at this point and you're interested in how to apply to the program, I think our wonderful colleague Tiffany will tell you all about it.
And I can help you very little in that regard.
Thank you so much, Patricia and Andy. If you wouldn't mind moving forward to the next slide, thank you so much. So I would like to share with you all just a few tips for our application, our requirements, and some notable areas to be aware of as you proceed with your applications for the psychology certificate. It's actually a very simple process to apply. We require the online application form, which can be accessed on our SPS website, an $80 application fee, which is non-refundable. For all of our applicants, whether you are domestic or international, we do require all of your transcripts from previously attended institutions. So for our domestic students, we do require an unofficial transcript to review your application. And for international students, we will require an official transcript with English translation for your application to be reviewed. We also ask for a statement of purpose between 500 and 750 words. The prompt is listed on our website, but please do take the time to elaborate on your interests in the program, how you intend on pursuing this program and how it will impact your future after completion. We ask for a copy of your resume or CV. And if you are admitted to the program, to confirm your registration and seat in this certificate, we will require a $500 deposit. Now, for our international students, again, just as you see here at the bottom of the screen, there are a few special considerations to note. Again, we do ask for your official transcripts for your application to be reviewed. You're able to submit your application with unofficial documents in the application portal. However, your institution or the third-party processing entity that sends your transcripts will need to provide your official documents in order for your application to be reviewed. We also ask for English proficiency scores if English is not your first or native language. We accept TOEFL scores of 100 or higher, as well as IELTS scores of 7 or higher. Now, there is an exception to this rule. If you have attended an undergraduate institution where English is the language of instruction, and you attended that institution for 2 years or more, you are eligible for an exemption to this rule. So please do indicate that in your application or communicate with us via email if this applies to you, and we can provide you guidance on how to bypass those English proficiency exam scores.
Something to note about this as well is when it comes to English proficiency, not only is it, it may be difficult to do a completely different program, not in your native language, but it's also going to have a very specific vocabulary. So it's, there's, it's going to be a lot. And not only that, but if you are an international student, you will be coming into the program on an F1 or J1 visa, on a student visa. That requires that you need to be full-time. And by that, it means 4 courses per semester. And so, as Trisha and I have mentioned, typically we would recommend 2-3 courses per term. So do keep in mind that it will be intense just in general with the amount of content that you're doing. But then also it's going to be a lot of content in English. So, we really want to make sure that you feel comfortable and are set up for success in this program. It's not to scare you, just to really kind of give you sort of that understanding of what this would require if you were interested in applying to the program as an international student.
Yes, we have definitely seen a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of students who've had real difficulty, whose native language is not English, and come in really with, although they get the 100 on the TOEFL, they really come in with lower proficiency than is sufficient for the coursework. There's another point that I want to make that has nothing to do with the TOEFL, which has to do with the statement of purpose. I don't know if anybody has already looked at the application, but you may have discovered there is no statement of purpose. This is an old slide, and it, I think, needs to be updated. We've replaced recently the statement of purpose with a few shorter questions that are more specific. So you'll see it. Don't feel like, what happened? I don't see a place where it says statement of purpose.
And then Tiffany, a quick question for you. When it comes to the official transcripts, especially for international students, would that require what's referred to as a WES evaluation, or would a WES evaluation not be required?
We actually only require official transcripts for application review for applicants with international transcripts. Those transcripts, if your schooling was completed in a language other than English, we do require the English translation for that requirement to be satisfied, but an official transcript will be sufficient for application review.
That's
That,
good.
that
Yeah.
may be the case, but I almost always see a WES.
Sometimes it's easier for students to just have those translations go through services like WES.
And the reality is I have no idea what to make of a transcript if I don't see a WES.
You want me to move on to the next slide, Tiffany?
Yes, and speaking about WES, if you are going to submit a WES evaluation, do take the processing times into consideration, especially when we are entering a fall enrollment period. You'll find that WES transcript evaluations are delayed because of the volume of transcripts that they are evaluating. So if you are going to utilize this service for your document translation and for your transcript evaluation, please take note of that timing as it may impact your application review.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen one without, so I'm surprised that it's not a requirement.
There we go.
And for the important dates to take note of, the application deadline for fall 2024 is May 1st for both international and domestic applicants. Something to note again for our applicants with international documents, please get your applications, all of your documents submitted as early as possible. You will likely require an F1 visa, and that process takes an additional time frame after the application has been reviewed and an offer has been extended. So just to save yourself a headache and heartache of going through that process and rushing, please get your transcripts, your application, all of your materials submitted as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I have definitely seen students who could not start because they didn't get their materials in fast enough and the visa was delayed.
All right. Well, we have a frequently asked questions sort of section here to kind of start to lead us on questions about the program and sort of addressing your questions. So one of the questions was, is a point the same as a credit? The answer is yes. So a standard US institution higher education sort of system is based on sort of instruction hours, and so you'll typically see a program or a university do college credits. Points, credits, it's interchangeable. So a standard course you'll see is going to be 3 credits, though you'll see a number of the psychology courses will be 4, and that typically means that there's going to be some sort of lab component to it. Roughly, it equates to just the amount of instruction hours that you have per week, or
actually what it refers to is the amount of time that the student is is expected to be participating in active work for the course. It's 3 hours per credit per week. So if it's a 3 credit course, we're expecting you to be working about 9 hours a week. And if it's a 4 credit course, we're expecting you to work about 12 hours a week. So as you're right, Andy, that the lab courses are often 4 credits because it's the lecture component plus the lab. And so there's additional work because there's 2 components to the course. But also many of our seminars are 4 credits because there's a heavy reading load, and we want you to do it.
Yeah, fair. Thank you. That's good to know. And then how much do courses cost? So based on the point above and based on what we've been talking about, tuition is going to be based on the total amount of credits or points that you are taking per semester. So the tuition is based on per point. And so if you are taking 2 courses, totaling 7 credits or 7 points, you will be charged sort of 7 points of tuition, in addition to fees based on sort of the term that you are in. Those fees can, be some of them are required fees. Some will have fee structures based on the amount of credits that you've been registered for in the semester. So full-time, half-time is 3 credits, part-time is 1 to 2 courses total, half-time is 3 courses total, and then full-time is 4 or more courses. And so that will be sort of how tuition is determined. You should be able to find the tuition amounts on the program website or on the Student Financial Services webpage at Columbia University. I will note that typically Columbia releases the tuition per point amount later on in the year, typically during the summer. So that's why you may see sort of the tuition listed as the 23-24 academic year. Are scholarships or financial aid available? Great question. We get this a lot. So depending on your student sort of background. So for example, if you are a domestic student, the psychology certificate program here at Columbia University, since it is an award program recognized by the state of New York, it is eligible for financial aid, federal financial aid. So FAFSA would be coming into play. The amount may depend on the student, so that can vary There is a student financial planning website, which will go over different ways that you can finance your program at SPS. So federal loans, private student loans, scholarships. What I will say about scholarships or fellowships is that most are typically going to be for like a master's program, and there's not going to be much in terms of actual financial awards provided to students, especially with certificate programs like the psychology certificate program. So
it falls into a weird in-between space. It's not a, is that what you're going to say?
yes.
It's you know, it's not a master's degree and it's not an undergraduate degree. It's kind of like an extension of an undergraduate degree, and it therefore, for that reason, there's almost nothing available in terms of scholarships.
Yep, exactly. So
And even the financial aid, got to be honest, even the financial aid is quite limited, the amount that you can get for grants, unless things have changed since I last looked.
yep. Do I need to have my application completed in order to submit it? Tiffany, I'm going to send this your way.
Thanks, Andy. So you can actually submit an incomplete application, but we cannot review it. We will need all of the materials to be uploaded to your application portal in order for your application to be considered for review. Trisha did highlight something earlier. On our website, we have our current iteration of requirements for the previous academic year, because we are still in the spring of 2024. So as we transition to our fall semester, you will see a few changes take place on our website, including the change to the tuition rate and the new statement of purpose, which is now part of your online application form. So please do keep an eye out on some of those changes as they take place for the fall application cycle.
And then when is the deadline to accept an offer? So if an offer was extended to the student, how long would they be able to take before they can decide?
So we actually practice rolling admissions here at the School of Professional Studies. So your offer is going to be eligible for acceptance based on the date that you received your offer of admission to the program. So it will be listed in the information that's shared with you via email. It is imperative that you keep your eyes on your email after your application is submitted, not only to check on whether or not you've been accepted to the program, but also to make sure that we don't require any additional documents from you. We are regularly in communication with our applicants to ensure that all of the materials have been provided. If any additional materials are needed, that we communicate that with you. So please keep your eye out on emails from our team with updates on whether your application is complete, and once it is, whether or not you have been accepted to the program.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to say that historically, I wouldn't say, you know, because when people say rolling admissions, people are sometimes think, oh, I better get my application in early because it will be considered before the program fills up. Historically, we have never filled up. So you don't have to worry about being, you know, getting your application in before the May 1st deadline substantially in order to have a better shot. Although we do have better advertising this year, so maybe that will change, but in general, that has never been an issue.
And ultimately, the sooner will be the better, right? Especially if you need more time to gather your materials, if you need to plan how to move to New York, if you need to gather documentation for a visa.
Absolutely.
So absolutely do look at applying sooner rather than later.
Yes, there are lots of reasons to apply sooner rather than later, but not anxiety about getting in.
Right. And then I think we addressed the last point. Do I need to submit English language scores if my courses are primarily instructed in English? I know we mentioned that when it came to an undergraduate degree in the US, but What if a student did their undergraduate degree in an English-speaking country? Tiffany.
So again, this is based on the individual. If your primary language is English, if your native language is English, we do not require English language scores. But if you attended an institution outside of America or an English-speaking country, and your primary language of spoken in your home is not English, then yes, we will require those English proficiency scores. And this is pretty consistent across the board. However, if you have questions, if you feel like you may potentially be exempt from that rule, always contact us, email us. We are happy to provide clarity and determine if that applies to your situation.
So I think this is the time where we'll get into the Q&A. I know we've been kind of getting through, and we've got a few minutes here, so I'll try to get through as many questions as possible.
We've answered some of them already.
I hope so too. So let's see here. A question is, do these courses count for credit against the PhD course load?
No.
So the answer is no. Typically when you
No.
yes, no. So the answer is no. Let's see here. Are there any certificate candidates who go for a PhD or doctorate in social work?
Yes.
Yes. So
I'm good at this.
you're doing great. So let's see here. So following the recommended pace for course load, how long should the program take to complete? So, obviously it can vary from student to student, and from course load, obviously it's flexible.
I can do this one, Andy.
Go for it.
I recommended, if you're on what I would call the fast track, my recommended, if you don't have to take 4 because you're on a J1, then you should take 3 in your first semester and 3 maybe plus supervised individual research in your second semester, assuming you're starting in fall, and then maybe 1 or 2 in the summer while you're also thinking about GREs maybe, and then maybe 1 in the fall while you're getting your applications together, because applications are going to be due at the end of the fall semester.
Yes, December 1 is typically the PhD or PsyD deadline, so that could be a really good sort of essentially 4 terms is what would be recommended. But that can vary, right? And if depending on when you join the program, that might make the deadline or the time before PhD applications longer, right? Once again, PhD applications are December 1, so if you start in the fall or if you start in the spring, it can impact when you would need to complete the certificate program.
Moreover, if what you're aiming for is a PhD in clinical psychology, on the time frame I just described, the likelihood of you actually getting accepted into a program is extremely low, because as you may remember from before, they're really looking for you to have at least 2 years of experience as a researcher before you're going to have a successful application, and you're not going to have that in that period of time that I just described. So, a lot of people apply, let's say, the following fall after that.
Right. And, we have seen students get into like PhD programs, for example, while completing their studies here. But, just because you are not successful in your first round of applications doesn't mean, that it's that's it, right?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I tell people all the time, you will get in.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, how long if you're willing to stay at it for long enough, you will get in.
And it just gives you more opportunities for lab work and lab experience. So,
and I will also say that, people say, well, how likely am I to get in? Well, how'd you do in your courses? Right?
What programs are you applying to? Are they funded? Are they unfunded?
How much lab work did you get?
Right.
Is it related to the things you want to do? There's a lot of questions that come into play.
Yep.
One of the challenges people also that we haven't touched on, people ask us, what is our success rate of placement into PhD programs? Well, the problem here is what I just said, that the vast majority of our folks are aiming for clinical PhD programs. They really aren't going to be successful when they leave here because it really does require additional work for not every single person, but in general, people are not going to be successful right when they leave here. And by the time they leave, they're just not connected in with us anymore. So we have we definitely hear back from students telling us about their successes all the time, but I don't have like a strong set of records to indicate, what portion of people that actually ended up applying to PhD programs ended up ultimately getting in. And a lot of students also end up deciding, you know what, I don't want to wait and build up my credentials and get into a PhD program. I really want to be a practicing clinician, and a PsyD or even a master's program is going to suit my needs, and I don't want to put in that extra work. So that happens too.
Exactly. So for people considering completing the program part-time while working, are there afternoon, evening classes available? I will say that it's, there's some, but I would say mainly it's going to happen during the day. Is that right, Tricia?
Yeah, it's very difficult to complete a program without taking courses during the day. If you have some flexibility in your schedule and you can take, let's say, classes first thing in the morning sometimes, classes at 4 o'clock sometimes, then you can manage it. It would take a little longer. But we do not have all of our courses offered on a flexible schedule. And the other thing that's really difficult to do if you're working on a regular schedule is find lab work, because labs typically want you to work during the day.
Exactly. And so that's definitely something to consider. As I am a Caribbean, I would need to apply for a study visa. As you mentioned, that would be that we should do 2 to 3 courses per semester. Do you recommend we just apply for it part-time, allowing us to get the visa for a longer period? Unfortunately, I'm not sure about the visa agreements with the Caribbean countries, but you should be getting a J1 or an F1, which requires full-time enrollment.
Yeah. I've never heard of a student who is international being able to be enrolled part-time. I don't think it's an option.
Unless, I mean, the only time when you would be able to take fewer than 4 courses if it's during a summer term. But for the most part, every fall and spring terms, you do need to be full-time.
There's one other sort of interesting exception that's perhaps worth mentioning, since we've really hammered the English language issue. Because if you're an incoming student and your English language skills are limited, you may in your first semester be able to take some English courses and get a slightly lighter load than the other semesters. It's something you have to apply for specially, but I believe that's an option.
Perfect. Can you sign up for Psych 3950 for research experience while pursuing a master's in psychology in a neighboring institution? So if a student were doing a master's program at Fordham or at NYU, can they sign up for Psych 3950?
Why would you want to do that?
That's a great question. Moving on. Let's see here. So missed the beginning of the session. So the tuition fee is going to be on the program website. You can find it on the chat. Is there financial support available? It's federal funding is limited. There's not much. Certification is an alternative for the BA in psychology.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you're hitting all of the required courses that would be needed in order for you to apply for a master's or maybe even a PsyD or a PhD. That's the point of this certificate program. So yes, let's see here. Hi, if I live in New York City and I already have medical insurance, do I have to pay the fee for the insurance? No. If you are able to prove that you have a health insurance that is acceptable for and comparable to Columbia University, then you can do a waiver. If you are an international student, you automatically need to have Columbia's health insurance. How do international students afford the full program in regular? It can really depend, but it's mainly out of pocket or private student loans I've seen. It depends on sort of your background. Let's see here.
Before you move on, Andy, I just want to note to everybody joining, I have been trying to leave some helpful links in the chat, one of them being the link to the Student Financial Planning Office. And I also just left a link for the ISSO office for all of our international applicants.
Megan, you spoil us. And so let's see here. What is the benefit then of applying to this certification program and not an undergraduate psychology program besides time? I mean, so it's
Would you
time.
like me to take this one?
Yeah, by all means, Trisha.
First, this program is specifically oriented towards you. It's towards students who are reorienting themselves towards psychology. Our faculty are aware of some of the things that Andy was saying about how highly motivated these students are. And so they expect a lot from you, but in return, they offer a lot to you. There's a community of like-minded students that you will become a part of. And so that's a really nice benefit. The post-bac students support one another. You have Andy. And
You also wouldn't have to deal with general ed requirements.
right, but you also have the fact that I didn't quite finish, sorry.
All right, no, that's okay.
Interrupt you there. You also have the advantage that although we can't guarantee you a research placement, we are really trying to help you find one.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Let's see here. So, can we start an application online now, even if we intend to submit it for spring 2025? Tiffany.
So our spring 2025 application portal is not open. I do encourage you to apply for your intended term of interest rather than start an application online today for the fall and move that information to the spring. If you are eager to get a jump start on your application process, definitely collect your materials, start collecting your transcripts, start writing your statements so that you can incorporate them into your online application form. But it is best to actually apply to the term in which you're interested in applying.
Got it. And then how long, speaking of which, how long does the admissions decision usually take when you submit a complete application?
I think I'm the limiting factor. I'm the last person to see it. And so if if you've gotten through all of the other screens, then it comes to me. And honest to God, it depends on what time of the semester it is and how crazy swamped I am. Usually I get it done within a week of when it appears in my inbox, but there are times when it takes longer.
And overall, it usually is about 4 to 6 weeks after submission of a complete application that you'll receive a decision.
Perfect.
So if it's longer than that, blame me.
Depending on the times of year, exactly.
Depending on the times of year.
If the GRE is required for admission to doctorate programs of interest, is there support for GRE prep through this program? So I can definitely answer this. Depending on the time, depending on the situation, there might be some discounts that we can provide for GRE prep classes. You would have, as a Columbia student, you would also have access to certain learning platforms such as LinkedIn Learning that can also provide some help in terms of prepping for some exams. So some GRE prep, but not as much as we would like at the moment.
I didn't know there was any, so that's cool. There's some.
If you're coming from an unrelated field, should you still submit a resume, Tiffany?
Yes, you should. the resume is a required application material. Everything that is listed on the application requirements page must be submitted if you wish to be considered for this program. It is not optional. If you have any questions about those materials, whether or not you can submit in an alternative, please contact us. But generally, 99% of the time, what is listed is what is required, and your application will not be considered without it.
Perfect. How much does undergraduate GPA matter when seeking admission to the psych certificate program?
A lot. If you're
All right. I was like, I'm gonna wait until Tiffany answers. Nope. I think is that work for you, Tiffany, or?
Well, you probably want more detail than that. If your GPA is below 3.0, you're unlikely to be considered. If your GPA is above 3.5, I'd say you're probably going to get it.
There we go. You heard it here first, folks. Okay, so do those in the program have access to the resources at the Psychoanalytic Institute? Trisha.
Not as a matter of course, but you might be able to avail yourself of that.
Perfect. Let's see here. What is the percentage of students that go into clinical psych doctoral programs? I guess what's the breakdown of general like sort of programs that students kind of go into?
Yeah, I don't know that we have. I can more give you a feeling than give you actual numbers.
Yeah.
First of all, I would say probably between 50 and 75% of the students come in planning to go into a clinical psych PhD program, probably closer to 75. But as I mentioned, that is a challenging road. And so many people decide they just don't want to deal with it. And so they opt for a PsyD program, which is much less competitive, but quite expensive, or they even will opt for a master's program because they can get out and do it, they can get out and do it quickly.
Right. And I mean, when it comes to PsyDs and being able to be considered sort of a licensed psychologist, what about other programs that would also allow you to be a practicing counselor, for example, like the counseling psychology through Teachers College, or
Right. So there are master's programs that generally speaking, our students are not coming in here intending to do that. And quite honestly, if I discover that there's an applicant who's looking to do that, I will speak to them in advance of accepting their application, of admitting them to the program to make sure that they understand that this program isn't really required of them for that kind of a program. If you really want to do it, it's certainly a great way to prepare, but it's totally unnecessary.
yeah.
So the majority of our students are definitely aiming for the longer programs, and many of our students see this program as an investment, a financial and time investment that will enable them to get into a clinical psych PhD program that is funded. So then your graduate education ends up being funded. That meaning, you don't pay for it. So spend a lot of money here in the hopes of getting later into a position where you don't have to be spending that money, where you're actually getting paid a stipend. Okay. One thing that we haven't focused on at all is maybe a quarter of the students who are applying to our program who are not aiming for a clinical position, but they're really interested in social psychology or neuroscience or cognition or learning or some other area of psychology. Those areas are not quite as competitive, and students are much more apt to successfully apply to those PhD programs, assuming they were able to get into a lab here at a reasonable point in time. Those students are often able to get into PhD programs after that 1 year in our program.
Yep. Emma, for example, would be a good example. So there is clinical psychology, like clinical PsyDs or clinical PhDs. There's regular sort of research PhDs, and so that's where our sort of expertise can really help you in that regard. We tend to try to suss out sort of what you are interested in sort of pursuing. And
in fact, I want to add in that if you're interested in clinical, our department, we don't have it. You could, you might apply to Teachers College. We often have people who are really interested in Teachers College. Teachers College is sort of a special weird case. They do have a clinical psych PhD program. They also have a clinical psych master's program. And their clinical psych master's program, which is in some ways a duplicate of what we do, their clinical psych master's program feeds into their clinical psych PhD program. So they're more apt to take PhD students from their side of the street, as we say, than from our side of the street. And we have had occasionally our students be accepted there, but more likely they give our students offers to join their master's program, which is really just a replication of what the students have already done. So if you have a particularly set your sights on the PhD program at Teachers College specifically, and you might think that we feed into it, we do not. Okay. It's the only place that it's very weird because, Columbia, you would think. I think anywhere else, our students probably have an advantage over the master's students at Teachers College. Yeah. But right here, we don't. The other thing that I want to note is that if you're not interested in clinical psych, we have had many of our post-bac students continue on as PhD students in our department here. So there are, and in fact, Andy is often talking about the fact that 2 of my colleagues are former post-bacs who are now faculty at Columbia. Who started here in the psychology department as post-bacs.
Yep, exactly. So, it's definitely, we have essentially poster children of, success of the certificate program. You could end up teaching alongside Trisha. So,
oh, actually, that's another good point. I forgot a third person. So Jeff Cohen, who teaches the Topics in Clinical Psychology course and is a practicing clinician at Columbia's psychology practicing physician, also teaches 2 courses with us now, Topics in Clinical Psych and Abnormal Psychology. So that's 3 post-bacs who have ended up working in the psychology department.
Yep. We're definitely way over time.
So I'm sorry.
No,
I love telling stories.
don't have to apologize. This is good. So we'll go to just a few more questions. For the rest that we don't get it to, I'm sorry. Please feel free to reach out to our psychology email address or the certificate email address. And our team really can work to sort of field those questions. One question that I wanted to address, is this certificate for all its courses all online, or can it be in person? It is in fact all in person. It is not online at all. So that's definitely, you would need to be on campus to not only do a lot of the coursework, but also to do a lot of the lab work, I think. Let's see here. Does SPS offer career services? We do, but it's mainly geared towards a lot of the master's programs that's offered through SPS. And it may not be geared quite towards subjects like counseling or.
And also, you will not be in a position to get any kind of counseling position after completing this program. You have to get the next degree.
Right. Let's see here. And then does Columbia offer subsidized or non-subsidized housing for post-bac students? Unfortunately, the answer is no. It's mainly prioritized for the master's students in this program or at SPS. So unfortunately, that's not the case. And then thank you for the information. Could you please elaborate on why you may not recommend this for someone trying to pursue a master's in psychology? Would you recommend applying directly to the master's program, even if it is a career pivot?
I would say that you could take, I would recommend taking a few classes, probably at a community college where it would be inexpensive, just to get the basics down, like maybe an intro psych, stats, and maybe abnormal psychology and developmental. Those would be the four that I would have you probably look into. But you can also look at what the requirements are for the master's program. I believe some require essentially nothing.
And that's one of the major things that I like to sort of practice with a lot of the students that enter this certificate program. I kind of ask them almost immediately, do you have an idea of what kind of programs you're looking at? Because if you have an idea, or even if you have specific programs in mind, we can look at those program websites and we can say, okay, the PhD program at NYU requires 18 credits of psychology. They require a research methods or an experimental psychology course and a stats course. That's what the website says. So let's work our way backwards. Let's make sure that you are ticking all of those boxes. If you're looking at a specific program that's based on neuro, are you hitting all of the boxes in order to be considered a competitive applicant for neuroscience?
We will adjust the requirements for you.
Exactly. And so that's where, you know, if you're looking at a master's program, as that's sort of mentioned, well, what master's programs are you looking at and what do they require? Is it only just psych and stats? Great. That could, exactly as Trisha mentioned, be done at, you know, maybe CUNY, or it could be done at a different college for post-bac. We do also offer a general post-bac program here at School of Professional Studies if you're really interested. But you know, would it also be beneficial to do it through the certificate program? I mean, it really depends. Maybe you're not sure between a master's and a PhD. Who knows? That's where these applications come in. That's where conversations with us come in. So please feel free to reach out, and we'll kind of go from there. But Tiffany and Megan, I think that's probably as much time as we can do at the moment, right?
Okay, there's one question that I just noticed that I can answer very quickly. Somebody just says if they had a low GPA, but they've been working for 20 years, we will not look at your GPA in the same way if you've been working for 20 years.
There we go. Does Andy?
Oh, wait, they're offering fresh baked cookies. Yes, fresh baked cookies.
You know what, then that works. If you are interested in speaking with any of us, please feel free to reach out to the admissions team. And depending on the questions that you have, more than happy to have those discussions with you. But yeah, any closing words, Megan or Tiffany?
No, I just want to thank everybody, both our guests and our speakers, for such a dynamic info session. You know, I feel everyone's very excited. And yeah, just to echo Andy, please reach out to certificates at sps.columbia.edu for any questions that we may not have gotten to, or if you thought of anything after this info session.
Yep. And I will say I am currently in swamped mode. So probably don't reach out directly to me, reach to Andy. And if he has a question, or Tiffany, if they have a question that they need my input on, they'll send it to me.
Perfect.
And just to reiterate what Megan said, thank you all so much for joining today. It was a pleasure connecting with you, sharing this information with you. Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Megan, for joining us today, sharing this information. And we look forward to hearing from you all and seeing your applications soon. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.